Welcome back to Titan Preview. My name is Greg Norman. We're with Chris Cullen, the head coach at the University of Detroit Mercy, who started his season a little bit away from home in Marquette, playing in Milwaukee this past week. And I guess, Chris, it didn't exactly get off to the start that you'd hoped.
I actually didn't mind the first 5-10 minutes of it. And then, we kind of had a light punch that whiffed on a few things. And I liked the way we started. And then when Marquette came with a punch back, I thought we folded pretty early. And I was not very happy. Obviously, I didn't, wins are for the guys, losses are for me. It falls on me that we weren't really ready to deal with the counterpunch that well. And, pretty bad second quarter, pretty bad, I think got our bearings at least in the third quarter. And we continued to play in the fourth, but by then it was way too late.
You start off outshooting them in the first quarter 12-7. It's a 3-3 tie. And then it just kind of goes downhill. Was there a moment in time in that game? Because obviously you got off to a good start. Or is that just maybe rookies not realizing that because you played, first of all, question, did you play a lot of new guys?
Yeah, we had 9 guys in their first Division I game, right? So, 9 guys, not hotbed area guys, mostly, Midwestern, Western guys coming out for their first game versus, a game versus scrimmage is very different. A very good Big East opponent. I think this is probably, I was talking, I'm not sure what the final score was with Notre Dame, but talking with those guys a little bit, that we all agree that this is probably the best Marquette team in the last 5 to 6 years. So they're a pretty talented team. That's their third game. So all excuses, right? But, I don't like the excuses of that, but I think that's where the kind of, when things didn't go our way early on, right? Like the shots, everything kind of looked like it was a good thing instead of bearing down and just kind of looking and being better at what you do, each kind of individual on the field. It's, how a lacrosse game or a lacrosse team works. It's like a bicycle. If one pedal falls off, you can't blame the handbrakes, right? So I think one of the things that kind of happened with our group, and it's probably it's on me a little bit. It's mostly on me, but what happened with our group was, I think, the handbrakes were blaming the pedals, and the pedals were more worried about the bike chain. And so instead of just trying to, hey, take care of your own thing and take care of your own business, I think we all started kind of worrying about what other people were doing on the field, and then we couldn't worry about ourselves. So, we're going to make corrections. We're going to get better at what we do. We're going to focus ourselves mentally and emotionally, and then make some corrections, because I really, some easy corrections, some basic things that we have done in the past with some personnel, it just wasn't getting done. And it was not very good to see.
I can appreciate a coach taking the blame for some of the aspects of what happens, because it's, you take the pressure off the players. They were 3 of 5 on man up, and 2 of those penalties were unnecessary roughness. So maybe some of your young guys going at a little, maybe too hard.
Yeah. I'm not so sure. Again, that comes back from where we clean on ground balls, where we in control on approaches, right? So yes, a little bit out of control. And I think sometimes, young men like to try to make a play, and I'm never going to stop them from trying to make a play when things aren't going well. But sometimes that happens where a couple guys try to make plays beyond what they're supposed to do, and it leads to further spiraling in the wrong direction, right? We had a couple face-off jumps, and that's, if you've noticed, I think if you've been watching our games for a couple of years, when we have a couple jumps in a row, that typically leads us to more of a meltdown defensively, and things like that. So those are just things we have to address and get a better mindset on, and better play. If one thing isn't going well, other people have to bear down and do better, instead of worrying about one aspect not going well.
Despite the score, statistically, it was not that far apart. There was a lot of areas. The only place you really got skunked was faceoffs. You're 11 for 37. So they're
Yep.
picking up, 75% of the time they're picking up the ground ball. I get that part of it. I was surprised and shocked at the score after looking at the stat sheet. But again, when you look at the penalties and you look at the faceoffs, if you can't control those two areas, you're not going to win at the middle school level.
Right. And again, I think I think it was more of a spiraling situation, right? And I don't think we played well defensively, right? Like if you're not going to win faceoffs and you're going to have a couple penalties like that all in a row, you have to be impeccable in your defense, right? And we've got a lot of experience back there. We've got great goalies. I'm still going to die on that hill. We've got a very smart and seasoned defense that wasn't doing some basic things that they need to do. Things that we've practiced and seen with two-man games and things like that we prepared for that just weren't being executed. So, I think in any game there are times when you have lulls and good play at parts of the field, but I think we need our experienced guys and kind of our older guys to get a little bit more accountable to the situation when things aren't going well with the new guys.
You only played the one goalie, am I correct?
Correct.
With 6 on the bench and a score of 22 to 8, what was the point?
Well, he hasn't seen, we kind of know, at least for 2 of them, what to expect. The rest of them deserve a shot. I'll tell you, I'm not so certain, at least in our film evaluation with the coaching staff, that goalie play was actually a problem. While it was not great, and we think we can be better there, some of the things that he was seeing were a lack of the people in front of him not executing in a game plan. So while I might have done that different, and I'm not so sure this early in the season, switching goalies is again, I don't know if anybody has the right answer on what the psychology of that is. And it's something we've been struggling with for the last 2 years. But I'm holding the people in front of him more accountable than some of the shots he was seeing I don't think anybody would save. So we have to be a little better in front.
I only asked the question because you've been very, affirmative about talking about having 6 goalies and being pretty good. In a blowout, you at least get a chance to see somebody play, and then that was the only reason I was asking the question. So that wasn't.
Yeah, and again, you're also hoping for a little bit of a spark, and again, I was kind of taken aback by the way our defense played. That was kind of the thing for me, that as it was happening, and as they were, given corrections during the game, that things were not happening at the level that I thought they were going to happen. So I was more focused on that in game, and I've been more. And the film the film doesn't lie. So that held true to kind of what our in-game analysis was and what it was post-game.
And because of the 2-week layoff between the game in Marquette and going to Ohio to play Virginia Military Institute, I don't want to kick a dead horse. When is it the player's responsibility to play better in your mind? As the last question, we can put the Marquette game behind us.
Yeah,
you take blame as a coach, but
we're lucky we have a week of corrections, right? It's not going to be a happy week. I don't think many guys are going to be really happy to see me all week, right? So the good news is, and this game was supposed to be played. It was originally it was on the schedule, off the schedule. It was supposed to be played a lot closer to VMI. So let's hope it's a blessing that we kind of had this one start and then kind of a nice week of corrections. And it's not always a happy time. It's not a pleasant time, but being a Division I athlete is not always candy and bubblegum. It's going to be a week of corrections where typically, you have maybe a day or two of corrections, and you have to move on to the new opponent. So the good news for us, while it's also good to be playing games and get more comfortable in games, that's not, we didn't have the ability to do that with our travel schedule. We're going to have a week of corrections, and it'll be a hard, tough week that we got to make and see where people are at, see where we need to have make changes and do better. And then we're going to have a week to prepare for VMI. So, it's just going to be, and hopefully for a younger group and a group that hasn't seen much success, we can really kind of build on the disappointment and make some good changes this week.
Okay, well, we'll put the Marquette game in the cellar and leave it there and lock the door. As we move forward, you're headed to Columbus, specifically Olentangy High School. You're going to meet them sort of halfway. Good compromise, obviously, of not having to do those long bus trips like you did last year. VMI is also probably a closer opponent to what you're used to playing because they're going to be in the league next year with you in the NEC, and I think that's important. Take out a team that, in fact, is 1-3 at the moment. 1-2 at the moment with wins over Cleveland State and Queens. They lost to a very good High Point team who recently played Duke.
I think they lost to Cleveland State. It was a 1-point game, so it was
right. My mistake. Let me start that over.
Even.
No. I'm looking. I'm trying to. Yeah, that's typically I got this right, but I didn't have any intention to do any pre-work. Let me start over. So the only win they got is over Queens, 14-10.
Yeah.
But play Cleveland State tough. All right, let me start this over. All right, let's put to bed then, obviously, the Marquette game. Let's put aside. We'll look forward. You're headed down to Columbus, Olentangy High School on March the 2nd. I think that's – what time does it start?
I think we're at 2 o'clock.
Okay, 2 o'clock. It'll be televised. First televised game for you guys, which I think is pretty cool.
Either streamed or on we appreciate the help you give us with that. And it's either going to be streamed on YouTube or on ESPN. I'm not really sure how our back end at the university is, but I know we'll have a good broadcast from you at least. So one way or another, you can watch the game.
The good part about VMI is a team, I think, similar in both talent and sort of makeup that UAD is. They're going back into the league next year with you in the NEC. So sometimes being on the same level helps a little bit, especially early in the season with young talent. They're 1-2 at the moment with losses to Cleveland State and High Point. They obviously played a one goal game to Cleveland State. Beat a pretty gamey Queens team, 14-10. Now they have a couple of games in between now and the March 2nd. So the question obviously is spacing out that time frame. We've talked a little bit about the schedule being what it was. You think the extra couple games helps them a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, games are different than practice, right? So, it's again, it was one of those things that's kind of out of my control with budget restraints and things like that. So, we're happy to play them. I'm glad we could work something out. They'd come up to us when we were at Seaholm and we really needed that. They did us a huge favor. We went down to them and we just kind of wanted to continue. So we figured Columbus would be a great place to play in the middle, and there'd be a lot of lacrosse fans, and it's a great venue. That's, I think, a good fit as we move into the NEC with them as members. So, they snake bit us last year. We were feeling confident going into that. It wasn't a great, we did not have the outcome we wanted last year. So I think a lot of guys that really stung them and has still stung them and stuck with them. We love their coaching staff. It's a really great coaching staff that has really done a lot there to push forward at a very interesting school for recruiting. And, we're looking forward to we had one game under our belt, and it's kind of almost a new preseason for us. So I think while they're playing games, they could have injuries and tiredness and things like that, but they're also getting in-game experience that is at a speed that is different than practice. We're gonna get corrections and have a great game plan and be the best we can. So I think we'll find out on Saturday which is a better I can tell you, at least with Marquette, them being their third game, that being our first game, they sure played a lot better than they did their first game. So we'll see.
You speak briefly of VMI being a kind of a unique institution. Talk briefly about it, because I think VMI is much like Texas A&M versus maybe being the Air Force Academy, Naval Academy, or West Point. Is that pretty accurate?
Well, I don't know. It's really a cool university. As a guy who's been competing against them for a long time, I really appreciate it. It's a beautiful campus out, in a beautiful community. You've got Washington and Lee almost attached to the campus. It's just, I know a lot of alumni from there. It's a very tight-knit group of people, and it's definitely a different college life than what most kids, are experiencing. You have that kind of military. You choose to go to a military background, but the alumni I know from there and the circles that they run in it's a very strong university for that. I know kids are pretty educated when they come out, and you have a lot of service options that you can either opt in or opt out. So for somebody who might, an 18-year-old kid who's not sure, like, they think they want military, but they're not sure. It's almost a great, like, hey, I'm going to experience this for 4 years, and maybe I want to do it for another 5, maybe I won't. Some kids go into the military out of there, sometimes they don't, but I appreciate what they do, and I appreciate always the hospitality that they've given us, and we're going to look forward to having them as a long-term rival in the NEC. So, and it's a hopefully we get them early in the year. They get nicer weather pretty early. So we'd love to play early in the season.
And that was my point. Texas A&M has a military component as VMI does. Unlike compulsory service, you're required at the Air Force Academy or at West Point, or it's a little different, but it's a place that you can learn. You can be a regular student, but you can also take the military background. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, even the regular students, I mean, are rucking, one of their, things that they have to, they have to deal with all the military stuff. Every student, they're living the military life. They have to, march in circles and do all the crazy stuff that they've been doing for, the history of that place. Really a storied history if you take some time to Google it. But it's just an interesting. If you can join our Navy, you can join our Army, you can join our Air Force, or you don't have to. So that's kind of a cool thing, I think.
Okay, last couple questions, and we'll move on because we're gonna have a conversation with the VMI coach a little bit here in a couple seconds. Between the first and second games, you've heard this in time of memoriam that the most progress is made by a team between the first and second games. In the last 2 or 3 years, I've listened to more coaches say that that's just not accurate. And the point being is that your team in the first 4 days of what you got because you've done a lot of off-season work. Doesn't change a lot. Doesn't mean they don't improve, but to have that kind of improvement over 1 or 2 games, I think is starting to become maybe an urban legend. Thoughts?
I think that especially with an inexperienced team, and again, every team is so different, right? I think if you have an experienced group and you know exactly what you're getting, it's an urban legend, right? But I mean, we've got a bunch of kids that I believe have the ability to stand up at a higher level, right? A lot of them haven't done it. I think we've had kids over the years that, most people, they're not recruited at a high level. They're not, we're not in recruiting battles with Ohio State, Michigan for them, but I believe they have the potential, right? So we're right usually more than we're wrong, but again, getting from potential to actual, living it out in an actual way takes some time, and sometimes it takes 2 games, sometimes it takes 3 games, sometimes it takes a season for a kid, sometimes it takes 2 years, right? So we're kind of open to all of that. We're hoping sooner than later for some of the guys, and we're hoping some of the guys actually understand back to doing some stuff they used to do, right? So again, I think that's where having a lot of time in between corrections will help us in this group, right? So I don't know. I think that's a team by team scenario. I don't think you can generalize a statement of 1 game to 2 games being better. I agree that it's kind of an urban legend, but also could be true in some instances. Sorry for not giving a straight answer. It's a wishy-washy thing, but
no,
I think the real story is I think every group is different, and our makeup is a bunch of Midwestern kids that we think are really good and have potential to be really good. And what are we doing as coaches, and what are they doing themselves to get to that actual place that we think they can get to? So we're hoping it happens by the second game. It might not. And it might. So we're going to try to control everything we can to get that done.
I think one of the things we try to do in these interviews, the conversations you and I have, we're trying to let the folks closest to the program know something they didn't know they can learn something about the program. It might be their own children. And then maybe some real aficionados of lacrosse might want to learn something that might not necessarily, it might not be a regular conversation that ever comes up. The good part of the conversations we have aren't just public relations discussions. They're actually conversations about lacrosse.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's the point.
I think what we do, why I like doing this with you is I think we're helping U of D, but I also think we're helping kind of that Midwest Michigan kind of family that's thinking about college lacrosse and really kind of how to get there. That sometimes it's a little bit harder, more difficult than just being the talented guy that ends up at North Carolina or Michigan, right? There's kind of a whole process to it, and I hope we're informing at least a little bit more about kind of the insides of that. I'm trying to, at least.
Up next is Coach James Purpura from VMI, and we'll talk to him in a couple of seconds, and we'll see you guys in Columbus. So thanks, Chris.
Thank you. See you there.
Welcome back to Titan Review. We're getting a chance to talk to James Purpura, who is the head coach at Virginia Military Institute, sitting on a 3-2 record with a recent win yesterday on Saturday over St. Bonaventure at home. And that's a 17-9 victory. You put two together against Hampton, 25-6, and now obviously St. Bonnie's going to meet in Otangi outside of Columbus, Ohio. You're going to play the University of Detroit Mercy. So first of all, congratulations on yesterday's start and the sort of the start of the season at 3-2. And what are you looking forward to coming this next week? You got a whole week off finally to practice a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. We just finished 3 games in 8 days, which certainly puts a grind on the guys. It's good to prepare for that. With being in the MAC conference this year, we will play a couple midweek games, so we get a little bit of practice of that with short turnaround and focusing on ourselves and trying to be the best us. It is nice to have a full week of prep now and get back kind of into the swing of things on a normal schedule, and excited to continue and finish out our out of conference schedule.
When you know you have the 6 days off, 7 days off in this case, obviously you're playing yesterday, probably give the kids a day off today. But when you get that much time, do you sort of pencil that in the beginning of the season? This is the break. We get to work on those things that maybe didn't work really hard at the first 5 games.
I think for us, we're always looking at getting better. I think it's how much time can you slot into those things. And I think a lot of times you're out of conference. Well, you want to be competitive and you want to put your team in the program, and the best chance to win, you're really figuring it out for conference play. Because for most of us, your ticket to the NCAA tournament is going to be winning a conference championship, and you're getting your personnel, you're evaluating, you're working on development, and those out of conference games allow you to do that. So certainly, when you get a little bit more time in the week, you get more time to accomplish some of those. We're always looking at how can you self-manage and make sure that your team is in the best optimal health and fitness levels and all those things that go into the sports science world. But it's certainly nice to get a couple of days here. The guys are off today, recovering and treatment, all those good things, and looking ready to attack the start of the week tomorrow.
I have a couple of questions about the game coming Saturday, but you, like UAD, are moving from different leagues. UAD Mercy going from the ASUN back to the NEC next year in 2025. You from the MAC. Do you prepare anything differently this year, or do you start to look at maybe a different kind of athlete that might be in the NEC? And what is it? Are you happy going back to the NEC, being in maybe a situation where you're playing against teams of sort of equal budget, which certainly means equal opportunity, I think, to some extent?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, Greg, it doesn't matter where you're playing, what conference, any of that. You're going out there to win. And so you put us on the schedule. We're gonna go out there and compete to our best of our ability to be the best us and hopefully get the result that we're looking for. So this will be my 3rd conference in my 5 years. Next year will be my 5th year at being at VMI, and so we've played in the Southern Conference. We've now played in the MAC for 2 years, and then we're going to transition into the NEC. And I think it's going to make up a great wealth of teams that we're excited to start some rivalries with and compete with. But I don't think it changes overall, because at the end of the day, you're trying to win every game the same.
No, and I appreciate the talking point about everybody wants to win. There's not a coach that I know that doesn't want to win, but equity is part of that solution. And if you're playing a school there's a reason that Big Ten schools play sort of lesser talented conference teams in the beginning of the season to get ready for those things. And I think an athlete that might be ready for the NEC might be a different athlete that might be ready for the Big Ten. Is that a fair comparison?
Yeah, I think every program's got different priorities just based on where they're at in their development, what their goals are for their program, what the support is. A lot of times, right, it contributes to what the expectation is going to be. But I think that's the fun as a coach is, even within a lot of conferences, there's not maybe a ton of equity between the top and the bottom. And at the end of the day, again, I think it doesn't matter. You're dealt the hand that you're dealt, and you're going to do your best to maximize whatever resources you have available. And I think in our sport, certainly, there's the Power Five conferences in every sport. They're going to have the resources, the support, the things that they need to be successful. And those teams generally are the ones that play late into May. But I think there's a lot of great other teams that really do a great job of maximizing all their resources.
And you've been there since 2020 as the head coach. You last year, same point, 5 games, you were 3-2. Coming off of that, you lost 3 straight to a season last year at 6-9. The only team that you played that was a little disjointed, High Point, you lost them 19-9. You're 3-2. Is getting over the hump now instead of losing 3, maybe looking at maybe winning a few and getting above that, which would be the first time. You've obviously had great improvement every year, but at some point you got to look over the hill and see the upside to the winning suggestions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we set some goals for ourselves, and I think for us right now, like it's continuing to get better every day and let the result take care of itself. So, it is interesting to hear that we were 3-2 at this point last year. We want to continue to win more games than we did last year. And again, we got a great opportunity here with a big conference slate of 9 more games plus, 1 more out of conference game. And I think our team has evolved each year that we've been here during this kind of rebuild. And we're encouraged with the production so far.
You're a Central New York guy, came up through those programs. The fertile ground that is Central New York and related to lacrosse, certainly Long Island. If you're another New York guy, you're in Virginia, which is not exactly, you got some pretty fertile ground in that area too, as well as lacrosse. So you're kind of in a cool place because you've got a unique university and a great opportunity to coach there. So a lot of your roster talent comes from not that far away from campus.
Yeah, I think for us, we kind of draw a 5-hour circle around Lexington, and we kind of always talk about like the 95 corridor. And I think for lacrosse, we're always going to look to bring in a lot of people that, families are able to drive to games or be able to watch us play. I think that's important. So you will see a decent amount of our roster come from Virginia, but up into Maryland too. Those are our 2 biggest states of makeup. We get a lot of, Baltimore, Annapolis, in Northern Virginia, down to Richmond. But I think one of the great things about being one of the best academic institutions, and like you said, a unique education in that you can commission as an officer in the different service branches, is that we're able to attract national talent as well. What a great way and noble service to serve your country and become an officer. And you can do that at VMI. And if you're a higher academic young man, you can earn an RO and lady as well. But for our sport, the young men in our program can receive ROTC scholarships that help pay for college, and to get your tuition paid for is a nice luxury. So I think our first 3 signing classes of a new program, we had over 10 states represented in each one of them. So again, we're continuing to plant VMI flags and build a brand all over the country. And fortunate for TV and streaming services, if you're not able to fly out from Texas or California, hopefully you're able to watch the games.
I've had a chance to interview a number of the service coaches, Joel Bracey, and I think when you look in their eyes and talk to them, they know that every university's got great kids, and I don't want to disparage any, but when you talk to Joe and you talk about the kind of service that they're required to perform after they're coming out of the service academies, it really is a little bit different of a young man than you might expect at a regular, at a state university or anything else. So it's got to be a treat. I guess it would be like a high school teacher be able to teach chemistry rather than history. Just a different kid. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah, I mean, the young men in our program are the highlight of my coaching staff and our team every day. Is just we're surrounded by great people. They challenge us to be the best of us, and certainly I've learned a lot from them, and hopefully they've learned a few things from us as well. But we're working at a place where you do, and I would agree with Coach Alvarisi that we just have special people that to even one consider a different kind of education that's going to push them and challenge them every single day. It really is. It's contagious.
This coming Saturday, you're going to play UD Mercy in Columbus at Olentangy High School, kind of getting rid of those long bus rides and sort of splitting the difference. I know the last time you guys played last year, it was at VMI. So it's kind of a nice opportunity to play. Is it weird playing at a neutral site, or is it just another game?
I think it's just another game. We'll kind of treat it as an away game. It's a little bit closer, I believe, to Detroit than it is to us in Lexington. But certainly, they did the long haul last year. We did it the year before that, and went up to Detroit. And a great way to be able to continue to play some teams. This will be out of conference, obviously, and next year it will be a conference game. So nice to kind of play in some different geographies too. We've got some young men coming in from Ohio in our recruiting classes. We've got some families on our team that have lived in that area before. And so it's always nice when you can kind of plant your flag, but also play games in different areas and continue to build that brand. And we play a lot of upstate New York or in the mid-Atlantic, New England with MAC play. So it's nice to kind of get out to the Midwest a little bit as well.
It's a great high school facility. We played there a couple of times on the high school side. Once on the club side for Big Ten schools, and it's a great opportunity. Talk briefly about your players, and I don't even want to tempt this young man's last name, but Luke, and I'll let you say the last name. 28 points in 5 games, including 12 goals, 16 assists. So he's kind of your sort of offensive guy to go to at this point for numbers. How do you say his last name? Because I don't want to screw it up.
Rustarucci.
Okay, good Italian boy. What does he bring to the plate, and what can we expect from him coming Saturday?
Great young man. He's a guy that was in part of that first recruiting class we brought in. And that year, I think we played on average like 8 freshmen a game. So he was kind of thrown to the wolves right away. And each year he's worked hard to develop and become better. And I think right now he's playing his best lacrosse. I still think the best is ahead of him. He's taken on more of a leadership role with some of the graduation pieces that left our program last year. But just a great young man. He's worked hard and he's done a great job of he's very balanced, score, pass, and has kind of been the guy to really stir the drink this year for us.
The other young man you have to watch out from a scoring perspective is Charlie Hunt. He's only got 22 shots, but he's got 15 goals off of those 22. So if you're shooting at a 700% rate and scoring at a 700% rate, I'm guessing you're going to draw some attention from the coaching staff on the other side of the hill watching film this week.
Yeah, Charles is a great young man. He's a guy that didn't play a ton his freshman, sophomore year, and I think has just worked really, really hard. We always knew he had a unique kind of skill set. He's a large attackman, 6'5", and he's really just grinded. And I think that's what's great about having, we talk about building programs, is being able to let guys come in that have a really high ceiling that might need some time and development, but you're talking about a young man who's never once complained. He's worked his butt off and got an opportunity and has clearly ran away with it. He scored on his first 8 shots to start the year, and he's a goal scorer, and he's become a lot more balanced as an attackman as well. And we're excited to see his continued growth as well.
Makes your offensive coordinator look like a genius, right? All the shooting practice. If you look at stats with your school, and I guess this last couple of questions, if you look at stats to the first 5 games, really even across the board, no matter who you've played. One exception, now here's the question I've got. Jack Rogers is your, number 13 is your faceoff guy. 68 for 117 this year at 581. What do you think to be a successful Division I program, your winning percentage has to be on faceoffs? So my question is, what are you happy with? What are you not happy with? And what is Greg Gregorian kind of numbers? What's Trevor Baptiste type of numbers?
Yeah, it changes every year. I think that's certainly a contentious debate. Well, I'll answer the first part of your question. Notre Dame won the national championship with a guy that went under 50% last year.
Right.
I played exceptional down the stretch and in the tournament. But you certainly can win even if you're not winning faceoffs, but you're going to have to play maybe a little bit differently or change some things within your team systems to kind of mitigate that. But Last year was a unique year in that there wasn't a ton of guys, even at the high end, that were that much better. And so in the 70+ percentage, you're talking about all Americans, elite. I think anything above 55% in that 65% range is very, 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 very strong. And so, I guess 50% would be the average. If you're above that, you're doing a really good job in Division I lacrosse.
Marquette beat UD at the open the season. Marquette kind of railed pretty well. There was a good first quarter, 3-3. Looks like UD Mercy's got their swagger back a little bit. I know they had a number of penalties, but it looks like they may have played a superior team. I think Marquette may have one of the best teams that he's had in a while, certainly. But I think they've had some time now. They've had almost 2 weeks to get ready for you. So I think they bring a little bit of the nastiness back that they might have had a couple of years ago. So last question, and that's what are you kind of planning for UD, and what do you expect from them?
Always a strong opponent. Gotten to know their program a little bit better the last couple of years, just from them being on our schedule. And I think offensively, you see a lot of the same tendencies of they love Canadian influence, a lot of box players, whether it's coming from America and having some of the indoor, but they're always incredibly skilled and disciplined in that. Some of the returning scorers come back from last year. Defensively, I think they had some transfers come in that have helped out. They got some guys back that maybe weren't on the team last year. So they're doing a great job. They look strong, and I know they're excited about this season. So it's going to be a really good test for us to continue to measure where we're at and keep getting better for conference play.
Well, appreciate your time. I hope you have a great week, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to say hello next Saturday when VMI takes on the University of Detroit Mercy in Olentangy High School in Columbus. I think noon start, if I'm not mistaken.
12 o'clock. I really appreciate you taking some time, Greg, and looking forward to meeting you.